One thing you can count on for sure in life is change. And that's also what you can count on when it comes to Ms. Zmolek. Is change. All right. So, has someone gotten the definition of form? It'll go quicker if you do.
Objects having 3 dimensions.
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Very good. Good job. So I guess I put a little more information down here than I need to. So form has what? 3 dimensions. What are those dimensions called? According to your book, does it have, what does it tell you in your book?
Length, width, and depth.
Length, width, and depth. Alright, so I am going to expand on that just a little bit. There's another word that's used with 3 dimensions, like if you ship your packages UPS or something. A lot of times instead of the word length, they use height, yes. So let's put that in there. So, did I spell that right? I think I did.
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes, you know, you can talk about the length, and then you've got the width. So what's the difference between length and width? So length can be this way, length can be this way, length can be this way. All right? But if we talk about the height, then it's only one way, right? So height, width, and depth means going back. HWD is lots of times what will be used instead of length, width, and depth. So just be aware. If this is what we call, maybe you'll study this when you get in college. One of my favorite classes I ever had was called semantics. And semantics is just studying how language is used and how meaning is conveyed. Very interesting. As you can probably see, I'm real interested in communication and how it happens. All right, so if you see the example in your red book, there's a strong correlation between the shapes and the form, okay? And a lot of people use those words interchangeably. Like they'll call this a shape, they'll call this a shape, this is a shape. But the big distinction we're going to make is that shapes are 2-dimensional, form is 3-dimensional. So everything that's real, for the most part, in this room, so everything like my chair, the ladybug, etc., are what? Forms. All right? So in order for things to look real, most of the time you have to make them look like a form. What would be the one exception of things in this room that are not forms? Paper, right. That's about the only thing in this room that is not a form. All right, so something to keep in mind. Now, how these are shapes. These are really technically shapes, but they look like forms. And when you look at, for example, a sculpture here, how you know it has form, even though this isn't the actual sculpture, is the dark and the light, right? And also if you show like a pyramid, when you show the sides, a cube when you show the sides. So, a few examples. Most of you know these things. Now, how to draw a cube. How do you do a cube? Draw a square first. And most of you know how to do this. All right? And then from the corners here, if it's going to go back this way, you make lines that have an angle. And you need the trick to making it work. I noticed a lot of people in their tests last quarter. I'm not teaching you how to do this in this class. They all have to go at the same angle. So when you draw that cube, they should all be parallel to each other. Mine may be. Okay, and then this line that here has to be parallel to what line? This line right here, and this line has to be parallel to what line? This one up here. So to complete the drawing, and that's why sometimes when you try to make a cube and you don't know these rules, it ends up kind of wonky. So you don't want a wonky cube. All right, so that's one of the ways to show 3-dimension, and the other way is through shading. And so I think we talked about this before. Did we talk about my nostrils yet?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and what did we say about my nostrils? What color are they?
Black.
They're black. Are they really black? Only if I've been in a coal mine or something. Cat? Where's Cat? Is Cat here? She's not here today. Thank you. Alright, so how we see form is through light. Because if I turn off the lights in here and make it totally black, we don't see anything. Alright, so if the light's coming from from the side, for example, this is going to be kind of light. This will be a little darker. And this side would be really dark. So it depends on your source of lighting. I'm just using the example in the book and how they showed the shading. So to make it look like it has form, you have to use shading. Same thing with the circle. That's a bad circle. What you have to do is, I'm going to shade it all in a little bit. I'm not teaching you how to do this. And the other thing, notice the edges of the forms in your book. Do they have lines? Do they have lines? Do they have lines? Look at the forms in your book. Do they have lines? No. All right. So, what kind of lines do they have that we talked about earlier, though? Implied lines. Okay. So make sure if you want to make something look realistic, now maybe you don't want to, then you're going to have to get rid of that line, because in reality, unless you've got a Halloween costume on or something and you put lines around. And I'm looking for an eraser now. So to get the light and the dark, you just have to do shading. And that will make a circle look like it's 3-dimensional, even though we know it's not. Okay? This is one of the skills you would work on if you take a drawing class. We don't have time to work on that. Quarters go too quickly. I wish this class was 2 quarters, actually. Okay, so what are some examples of artwork that are really forms? Anybody? Huh?
Sculptures.
Sculptures, good. What else? Huh?
You'd write that question.
Yes, write that down. Or you could put examples of artwork that are, you don't have to write the question, you could just write examples of artwork that are real forms. You could leave this out. I was just doing that ahead of time. Okay, what else besides sculpture? Anybody wearing any artwork that's a real form? Jewelry. Your rings, if you're wearing a ring. So jewelry is art.
I wish I was. That'd be awesome.
All right. What else? What are we in right now? A building, which is architecture. That's an art form. That's 3-dimensional. That's a form. So a lot of you want to take what class? That's a 3D class. Besides 3D.
Ceramics.
Ceramics. Okay. That's where you make things that are actually formed. They're real. All right. And then the last, so then how do you create an illusion of form on a flat surface? I just told you. What's the answer to that? Shading, okay? You have to use shading. And then how do you make an image look realistic on a flat surface? Shading! All right? I know that's a little confusing question. So, for example, Miss Bailey and I played around with Photoshop yesterday after school, and we took an image of somebody, and we varied the shading on it. What do we do with that? What did I do with that? It's here. Okay. So we started with an image that you would know. I wouldn't know her. I don't know.
Swift.
I don't know.
Is it?
Yes. You got it. Okay.
Look, it's me.
No, it's me. All right. All right. So here's an image where there's a lot of shading, and most people would say this is very realistic. All right. Now Photoshop, we took it into Photoshop. Actually, I took it into Photoshop and Illustrator. There's a filter where you can take out some of the values or some of the shading. So here's the next level. And what happens is it doesn't look realistic.
No.
Okay, is it completely abstract?
No.
No. Okay? But it's starting to look less realistic because there's less shading. Okay, there's less values, and we're going to talk about values later. All right, then we took out some more. Oops, that one doesn't show enough contrast. And then we limited it to 2 values, black and white. Okay, how does that compare to the other one? Which ones? I should have cut the edges off here. Which one's more realistic? The one on the right, the one on your right, or the one on your left?
Right.
The one on the right, because there's more gradation of shading here. Here it becomes more cartoon. And then, this isn't quite the way I wanted to end, but we took it into Illustrator because we couldn't figure out how to do it in Photoshop. And we reduced it to 1 value.
Beautiful.
Yes, and so
That's so cool.
that is even less realistic, right? So a line drawing is going to be a very unrealistic image. All right, so what happened is these are lines around all of the different areas of the shading, and then we just took it out. So there's just one. There's no shading there whatsoever. So that becomes more abstract, right? So that's how you make something look realistic. You have to show shading. So even though my skin, I'm evenly colored all around, when you are drawing me, if you want me to look realistic, you can't make my skin all the same color, right? You have to have darker and lighter. And here, people have a hard time with this because they can't see the different values, but they're there. If you kind of look at her hair, there's just all kinds of shades of gray. We've done this in the black and white. All right, so for number 11.
No, this is 10.
For number 11. Okay, what I want you to do, now you've already done kind of an example of form on your chart. You have 2 choices. You can either do a drawing, but if you do a drawing, I want you, with a pencil, but I want you to look at a form and do it. Okay, so you're going to do an example of a form. You're going to use either pencil, or you can do a computer. You can do it on the computer or Google SketchUp. Anybody use Google SketchUp? All right. Now, I'm not real picky about this. Google SketchUp is just giving you a chance to practice using a computer program to create form. and I don't know how to use it, but I use it. But I'll show you how to use it. So if you want to do form, you can do actual objects, or you do have a lot of times in beginning drawing, people will use simple forms, and these white forms, which again you know are all white, but looking at it, some areas are gray, some areas are a little darker. So if you want to, set up a little still life and draw from it, you can do that. Anybody done that before? Have you done that in any of your art classes? Yes, no? The other thing I'm going to suggest is that when you use a drawing, there's drawing pencils back in those colored drawers back there. Pencils, anybody use drawing pencils? Okay. What's the big deal about, why do you have different kinds of drawing pencils? Okay, right. So depending on whether you want a dark mark or a light mark, you're going to use different pencils. And the softer the lead, the easier it is to blend it, and the easier it is to make dark. So right now, what we're looking at here, I don't know if you can see this. This is a 6B. All right, and that would probably be I would probably do the whole image with the 6B. The 6B is, one, and first, get your, lay your shading down, but what you can do with the 6B, the more you press, the darker it becomes. And you can get a really dark surface with a 6B, where with a 6H, that's when you want to make a really light mark. The other thing, if you're going to do your form, you're going to want to use, some of you've used blending stumps before. You can use that to shade with. I don't draw with pencil a whole lot. When I draw, I like charcoal. And the other thing is you can use, most of these blenders will have enough charcoal or graphite on them to enable you to do a really light. And then you might need to come in, usually there's a highlight somewhere, you can come back in with an eraser to create an even lighter mark. All right, so that's a very, very, very brief introduction to shading with a pencil. So that's what you'll have to do if you want to do a drawing. If you want to get a 4, I want you to do at least 2 shapes, and I don't want you to just make up a form like we did in our notes, just by kind of doing it from your head. I want you to actually look at shapes and draw them. Okay, that's a skill that is important to have in drawing. All right, so I didn't record it. Dang it. Anyway, next time. Yes, I did.